Hi everybody, my name is Pierre Lamielle and thank you to Melissa's Produce for bringing us all together virtually for this little cookbook presentation. And I'm coming to you virtually from Canada, wherever you are in the world. It's really fun to be able to connect to you in this very cool new way. So my name is Pierre Lamielle and I'm here to tell you about my brand new cookbook called the Munchy Munchy Cookbook for kids. And this is published with Familias, and who's all about family and building families together. And this book really hits that mark. So it's the Munchy Munchy Cookbook for kids. It's for kids to cook from and to eat from too. So you can cook recipes from this book with your kids, help them develop a really awesome palate and the important cooking skills necessary to be lifelong foodies and cooks, and etc. So before I get into the book more, I want to introduce myself and do a little bit more of a bio. So my name is Pierre, and I started as an illustrator. All of my cookbooks that I've ever written have illustrations in them because I think it's fun, I think it's whimsical, and it's really kind of like my voice and helps me tell stories. My first cookbook was called Kitchen Scraps, a humorous illustrated cookbook, and that was a fun, silly, great cookbook. My next one was Alice Eats, and that was a book I wrote with my friend Julie Van Rosendahl, who's a great food writer and blogger. She took all the beautiful photos. I did the illustrations, and we paired it with the timeless works of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which turned into this really awesome cookbook idea. Came together really beautifully. And then this book has been in the works for quite a long time. It's the Munchy Munchy Cookbook for kids. It's got a beautiful cast of characters. We'll get into some more of the details in a sec, but I'll just tell you a little bit more about where I came from and how I came about doing cookbooks. So I started as an illustrator working in newspapers. So I worked for big dailies as an illustrator and designer for about 6 years, and then I started writing a food column for a local magazine with drawings and recipes, kind of a cool little combo. That turned into me wanting to go to cooking school and kind of get a little bit better chops, a little bit more of an understanding of food and cooking and how to communicate it better, how to write about it better. So I went to the French Culinary Institute, which is now called the International Culinary Center in New York City, which was a phenomenal place to learn how to cook. Really, really cool, fun, life-changing experience. And then since then I've been teaching, and I teach people of all ages, and I'll be honest, I find that there is not much of a difference between kids learning how to cook and adults learning how to cook, except that the kids tend to be a little bit more interested and a little more dialed in, and they don't come with a lot of preconceived notions about what they already know, like a lot of adults do. They're kind of sponges. I mean, kids are sponges, right? Like they're fun to teach. And as long as you're respectful of their things that they're afraid of, and maybe you make it a little more fun, then kids are really super open to a lot more things than grown-ups are, that's for sure. So I did all these cookbooks and things, and I've managed to never quite work in a restaurant kitchen, which was a very conscientious decision, and thank you to the late, great Anthony Bourdain. I read his Kitchen Confidential very early when I was 15 in high school. And I decided then that working in restaurants, probably not for me. I made the decision early on to not work in restaurants. So I took a different path, but I still came back to food because I love food and it's a big part of daily life. And I really think that if you know how to cook well, you can go a long way with it. I mean, at home, it's a daily thing. You cook every day. It can lead to making healthier choices in life. Although we don't like to talk about healthy stuff when it comes to the kids. It's a nice subtext, but if you're going to convince kids to eat things, I like to tell them about tastes and textures and colors. Much easier sell to get a kid to eat a thing that's crunchy instead of something that is healthy. I mean, it doesn't take long for the kid to figure out that carrots do not actually help them get night vision. That's not a real thing, and they quickly debunk that myth. But they are sweet and they are crunchy, so kids do love eating carrots, and it's not a hard sell. Quick little side note, I did do a little bit of like food competition stuff along the way, so I got an opportunity to compete on Chopped Canada. I feel like Chopped Canada is kind of like the place where they put people that have a alternative culinary approach to things, maybe a fun, maybe like an illustrator, cookbook writer kind of thing, give them a try on Chopped. And I did, I got a chance to do that. It was super fun, probably one of the funnest single days I've ever had. And I walked away with $10,000, which was pretty great too, so I did win that one. It also led to the opportunity to be the least qualified competitor to ever compete on Top Chef Canada, which also was a lot of fun, but it was very long and very grueling. So if you're thinking about maybe like someone who's a writer, you're like, I wonder how I would do on any of those cooking competitions, try Chopped and then see where you go from there. I wouldn't dive right into Top Chef Canada or Top Chef right away. That'd be a big jump. So for me, the decision to make the Munchy Munchy Cookbook after, having written a couple of cookbooks and done this competition stuff and, teaching people over the years, et cetera, the idea was to create a book that could then be a series and a building block for kids to, one, be introduced to food and cooking and the concept of them being allowed to do the thing. That's the cool thing about cooking. It is a gateway into being an adult, and for kids, that's very attractive because they are not allowed to drive a car, that's for sure. But they might be allowed to use a knife or cook on something that's pretty hot, which has a really dangerous element to it. And for a long time, it's a no, but then it's a yes. Okay, under correct supervision and with proper instructions. Same as driving a car, but obviously you're not going to start there. You're going to start with cooking and those basic skills. So when I was putting together the cookbook, I thought there were some really important things. I taught kids of all ages, and there's a few things that really do stand out. One is that it doesn't matter what age the kid is. There's no curriculum that people follow. For the most part, people are reading at an incremental state, right? But you can get a 6-year-old or a 12-year-old, and the 6-year-old can out-cook and prepare a 12-year-old because they haven't been taught the steps. So that is really important. Start with the basics. It may seem really basic to adults who are looking at this book, but these are the fundamental building blocks. And they're really important, especially for kids who are just getting into this. And where there is danger involved, so you do have to take a cautious approach. Let's just flip through the whole book. We'll go for it. I mean, not the whole book, but a good chunk of it. So we're going to start with the table of contents. And the reason is, that's just the best place to look to get an idea how this book all comes together. We got the front matter, and I think that I got some really important things up in the front matter. It's a real introduction to the way this book kind of works, the style of the book, and also, safety. Safety is a pretty big one. We'll touch back on that. And then we get into the basics of any way any cookbook is put together. So we've got breakfast, lunch, dinner, and sweets. Sweets obviously very, very important. Got this beautiful little rainbow color coding system here for our recipes at the beginning. And in red, right there, we're going to dive right into safety. Okay? And it's really important. It really is to start this off with all the basics. Here they are. Sharp, hot, germs. These icons are going to show up throughout the book. So before you start a recipe, you're going to see that icon. The kids are going to know. These are the things I got to be aware of. These are the safety precautions that I need to take. We get into how to hold a knife properly, how to maneuver a knife properly, things that are sharp, Other things that are surprisingly sharp, like peelers and the blade in the bottom of a food processor, and the zester, right? You can lose a knuckle on a zester, no problem. So what happens if it happens? And it's gonna happen. Everybody, doesn't matter how good you are at cooking, you cut yourself at some point along the way, and you might have a moment of panic. What do you do now when no one's here to help me? Well, hopefully the kids are being supervised properly according to their age and skill level. But if it does happen, here's what you do. You clean that cut first, right? You give it a rinse, dry it off, Band-Aid. If it's really bad, obviously look after it. Get someone else to help you out. Then we get into other things. Hot. Well, hot's a big one. That's, likely that someone's going to be stirring a pot of something before they're going to be slicing and dicing things. So, how to be safe. Where's your fire extinguisher? How do you put out a fire if there really is one? You cut off the oxygen, you pour baking soda on there. If it's really bad, you get an extinguisher, okay? And also, let's look at right here, okay, it's okay to cry. If you do get burnt or cut, it's totally okay to cry. It actually makes you feel a lot better. Now, this is pretty important. Germs, cross-contamination, raw meat, and how they transfer things over to, how do you get sick from food? What happens to you if you get sick from food? You get a grumbly tummy. Maybe you have to go to the bathroom for up or down, whatever direction it wants to come out and wants to get out of there. Maybe you just feel queasy and gross and gnarly and not nice. And here's some examples of some of the little E. coli's and bacterias and viruses that can make you sick. But here's how to avoid them too. Wash, cook, don't cross-contaminate, important things like that. So how to avoid those situations. Now, here's the fun bit. Okay, we get through all that. That's educational. Great. Here's the fun bit. And I'm only going to dive into one or two of these recipes today to show you as a demo. But I really want to dive into who the characters are, because this is a character-driven book. It's really important to tell stories, to illustrate ideas, especially with kids. Introduce them. Give them something familiar, whether that's people or even recipes or ingredients. Something that's familiar to give them some buy-in. So here I've got Sal. She is an ace in the kitchen. She's the #1 best cook of this bunch. There's 7 characters, by the way. Sal, she is the best cook. Okay, she's clean. She follows a recipe. She's meticulous. She knows that she, has to put in the effort. Pepper, not quite the same. He is a little reckless. He's having a good time. He's a little bit silly. He likes to be creative, so he loves to be around the food. Not too worried about the cleanliness and keeping everything in order. And I find that these are the 2 types of cooks, whether they're kids or adults or whatever. There are these 2 types of cooks that people are, right? This is the 2 opposite ends of the spectrum. So the Sal and Pepper, so those are pretty fun names to play with, and so something familiar. And then we get into the, so these are 2 types of cooks. These are our human beings. And we get into our fun animal characters. Not only are we going to just meet these animal characters, but we are going to get a sneaky little intro to the taste buds. So the different taste buds that you get on your tongue. Here's Ragu. Ragu is an eater. He eats everything. He's open to trying anything once for the first time. He is he doesn't worry about it. He's going to eat everything. He's going to eat a lot of it. And he's super appreciative of everything that people cook for him. So he wants to eat. He's excited about it. He's very enthusiastic. He's paired with salty. Salty is a thing that shows up in all food. If you add salt to dessert, it just makes things taste better. Here's an example of foods that are salty. Also, want you guys watch. Look, check this out. There's a tomato. Oh, tomato. Yep, salty. I guess so. Yeah. Keep that in mind. Next up, we got Ziti. Ziti is a really picky eater. I'm sure you guys are familiar with those, especially in the kids department. There is a picky eater who sometimes shows up, sometimes doesn't show up. And it can be the same kid who just on any given day suddenly doesn't eat eggs or doesn't eat chicken or something. Like it's just a food that suddenly is not interesting to them anymore, and they are kind of poopy. And Ziti is kind of poopy as well, and she's a real naysayer, she's pretty negative, but I think it's really important to not dismiss that person, that personality trait, because kitchens, food, cooking, tables, eating places, they're inclusive. So it doesn't matter if somebody is a picky eater, right? You still invite your friends over when they have the dietary restrictions, because you want to see them, you want to be friends with them. And that's Ziti. She's always included, she's often negative, and that's okay. So she's paired with bitter. You know, no one really goes out of their way to eat bitter things. So there's chocolate, coffee, things like that. Oh, look at tomato. Tomato again. Next up, we got Sage. Sage is smart. He's quick. He is well educated. He loves food and history and science, and he is our go-to guy for information. He is also paired with sour, because sour is kind of a misunderstood ingredient. It really balances things out. Sometimes it brings dishes to life just by adding a bit of acidity through lemon juice or Greek yogurt, vinegar, tomatoes also. Next up, we got Rose. Rose knows everything about gardening, right? So she is the agricultural produce expert. I think she grew up working at Melissa's Produce as well. She really learned her chops there, learned where food comes from and how things are grown, et cetera, et cetera. So she knows everything about growing, how things are produced, how does an edamame bean turn into soy, what's the history of soy, that kind of thing, like really important stuff. So she's paired with sweet, fruit, sweet, very, very approachable kids. So we've got bananas and maple syrup and apples and tomatoes. Yeah, tomatoes are sweet too. Yeah. Then we've got Bean. Now Bean is the global traveler. She's also very tuned into social media. She knows what things are trending, the right food trucks to go to, the newest restaurants with the most authentic cooking apparatuses that are authentic to a location. She loves traveling and meeting new people and speaking new languages. She's got her sonar tuned into the happenings and the goings on. And she's umami, okay? So she's paired with that sort of elusive flavor of umami that a lot of people are just starting to understand. A lot of adults still don't know what umami is. But here it is. It's a steak, it's Parmesan cheese, it's a smoked fish or a mushroom, and also tomatoes. Big umami flavor there. Now we met all the 5 tastes, which leads us to the next bit. This is our first comic. Yay! I love comics. These are a great way for me to tell the stories through the characters about the food and really get the point. Kids want to read a comic, and you can sit and read that comic even if you know you're not going to do the cooking. Get excited about doing the cooking later on, and you're good to go. This is a comic about ketchup. Why ketchup? First of all, why is ketchup the first thing we're talking about? And the reason is because ketchup is made with tomatoes. Tomatoes are the only food that grows that are bitter, sweet, salty, sour, and umami. They have all 5 taste buds represented in the one natural ingredient. And what's the amplification of tomato? It's ketchup. And also everybody knows ketchup. So it's a really great connector to make everything make sense. So it's a balance of flavors. Yeah, it's sweet. Yeah, sometimes people like it a little more sour. Sometimes people want it saltier. But it's all these flavors and tastes that can be adjusted and customized. So that's really big for kids. You give them something familiar and then show them how to customize it. And here we go. That leads us right into our very first recipe of the book. Ketchup, the universal sauce, tomatoes amplified. Okay? Now we've got buy-in from kids. They're into it. What can we put ketchup on? Everything. Ketchup on my ketchup. Breakfast. I'm just going to show you how a recipe is laid out. So we got another comic here about eggs, and we're going to get into 5 recipes about how to cook eggs. Really great starting place for kids to learn how to cook. But as you can see, we've got numbered step-by-step instructions, drawings, replace words. Okay, so we've got these beautiful photos in the background. They're shot by my very good friend, Todd Patterson, who shoots all these gorgeous photos, and then the illustrations and graphics are superimposed on top. It's very inviting. Nothing is perfect. It's a little bit messy, and that's totally okay, especially with kids. It's okay to be a bit messy. And then we've got these great step-by-step instructions. Really easy to follow along for people of all ages. A picture tells a bigger story than words can. And so to show those illustrations as we go along, it's really fantastic. Then throughout the book, we've got comics and recipes and illustrations and rundowns of different roots and tubers and herbs. And here's another comic about making schnitzel and how dangerous it is. And here's a beautiful thing about fresh herbs. And then there's hard herbs and soft herbs. Like this, it's just chock full of fun information, very visual. Pizza recipe, how to make your dough from scratch, how to have a pizza party. This is the recipe I'm going to start with. Here it is. This is a recipe for chili, and we're going to start with a comic about the characters having a chili eating competition. So that's really fun, super dangerous, obviously, but it tells you like what happens if you eat something spicy and why is it spicy, and then the Scoville scale tells you which peppers will be spicier and gives you the spectrum. And then there's Ziti over here who's laughing at Pepper and Ragu, who just took it too far. Pepper and Ragu, they're a couple of goofs, and they went all the way to the Scotch bonnet habanero, and they went for it. And nobody wins in that situation where you have a Scotch bonnet or habanero. Ziti knows it; she thinks it's funny, but also, you know, Sage is there with some good advice, you know, drink some milk, eat some bread, you'll be fine. Here's Bean with a huge, beautiful selection of peppers from around the world, and that gets us into our first recipe, which is veggie chili. Lots of beautiful flavors and great way to eat veggies with a really simple cornbread muffin recipe. So, I want to get cooking. It's nice to talk with you, but I really love moving around and doing the cooking part, so we're going to get onto it. I'm going to make this veggie chili, and then to follow up as a dessert, I'm going to make the breakfast nachos. Now hold tight, you'll see what those breakfast nachos are all about. I'm not going to give too much away just yet, but they can also work as a really fantastic dessert. So let's kick off with veggie chili from the Munchy Munchy Cookbook for Kids by Familias, written by me. My name is Pierre Lamielle right there, and all the photos done by my very good friend Todd Patterson. And thanks again to Melissa's Produce for bringing us all together so we can eat and cook and be foodie together. Let's go. Oh yeah, now it is time to start cooking for the Munchy Munchy Cookbook. So we're going to turn to page 130, and it's a comic. So we're going to read the comic, and it's going to be the Munchy Munchy Bunch, and they are at a chili eating competition. So there they are, all lined up. Ziti says, no, this is a terrible idea. I'm out of here. Everybody else, they're going to give it a chance. Everybody starts out with a sweet bell pepper, and that's no big deal because bell peppers are sweet and crunchy and delicious, and there's nothing to be afraid of there. So what kind of competition is this? Well, this is a competition where the heat gets turned up. So then we hop into the jalapeno, which, as you know, tends to heat things up just a little bit as we climb up the Scoville scale. And also, speaking of the Scoville scale, that's on the next page, and that's going to tell you what each of these peppers ranks and just how hot they are, and explains capsaicin and all that kind of stuff. So then each of the characters tries to eat jalapeno, figure out how hot that one is. Things get to start warming up. There's also little tips about, you know, what to do if things do get really too hot. And then eventually we move into the very scary, very deadly I don't know if I want to do this. Oh, I forgot how good they were. So Scotch bonnets, not too spicy actually. This one's pretty good. So I got lucky there. I got really lucky. But these guys, not so lucky. As you can see, they took a bite and things really, really got hot. Now, this is gonna segue into our very delicious recipe for veggie chili. Okay, if you hop back one page, it's gonna show all the procedures on how to cut and chop all of your vegetables for the chili. Green onions, carrots, celery, sweet bell peppers. How to cut those all up. There's a beautiful picture of Bean, who loves traveling around the world and collecting different hot peppers from around the world. There she is. And then we're gonna get into the cooking part. Now, as you can see, all the photos are beautiful, shot by Todd Patterson, my very good friend and amazing photographer. And that's very inviting. Nothing is too perfect, you know, lots of splatters and things like that. And then we've got the beautiful step-by-step, which is so practical, so useful, especially for kids, where you can say so many things with just a picture, right? You can illustrate so many things without having to have too many words. There we have all of our vegetables already chopped up, ready to go. We're gonna put those into a pan or a pot with a little bit of butter to get them cooking. And now this is where it becomes the kids' choice. What pepper are they gonna take a chance on? And if you wanna try the Scotch bonnet, here's what you do. You just take the Scotch bonnet and you slice it. Open like that. So even if it does happen to be a really, really spicy one, that's just gonna go into the pot. It's not gonna add a ton of heat to the whole chili, so nobody's gonna ruin their day by having a Scotch bonnet in there. And then that infuses into the chili. And then you can pick it out afterwards so that nobody has to eat that whole thing all by themselves. Now let's actually get cooking on that. I'm gonna put this book aside for a bit. We're gonna actually start cooking that chili. So all the vegetables that are in there, we've got beautiful celery for a nice added crunch. Kids love celery. It's something that's really familiar. Carrots, you know, big juicy carrots are sweet. They can stay crunchy. They get nice and soft when they cook down. Also a real favorite for kids, so not a hard sell there. And then we get into green onions. So instead of using, say, a whole round onion, which is a slightly more complicated cutting procedure, the kids will use the green onions, chop the roots off, and then they'll hang on to the top end. Use that as a garnish, because kids love garnishing things. It's the final flourish, the beautiful presentation that kids love doing. And then the bell peppers. And it shows how to break down a bell pepper, how to dice it, and how to use a variety of different colors. So there's reds, yellows, oranges, purples, greens, if you're into that kind of thing. And then, once everything's been cooking for about 20 minutes, that's all of our vegetables. They're all nicely diced. They're cooking, and I'm gonna add my other liquidy ingredients and my chili powder. So chili powder, again, it's not spicy, right? It's just that really nice flavor that everybody's sort of familiar with. My kids, they've all had a bowl of chili at some point, which is great. They're familiar with it. It's a flavor profile they really like. Adding all these vegetables, here's the thing. Don't talk about how healthy those vegetables are. They're not healthy. Forget about healthy. They are sweet. They're soft. They're crunchy. They are textural. They've got great texture to them. And talk about that when you talk to kids. You get a much better buy-in with kids when you're talking about textures and flavors than you do about health. Tomato puree, it's gonna go in there. And then my beans. So some people are stuck on a certain type of bean. I like kidney beans are usually pretty typical for chili. I'm gonna use a mixed bean. It has chickpeas, pinto beans, kidney beans, all the different beans, so you get a little bit of different texture and sizes, and you get to expose the kids to like a whole bunch of different types of beans all at once in a nice format that's really familiar with, which is the chili. Now here's another thing. Every recipe I've ever seen always says drain and rinse your beans. But you guys know the hottest new trend right now is agua de fava, right? It's that like vegan thickener. So there's actually nothing wrong with the juice. And it adds a nice starchy creaminess to the whole chili. So put the liquid in and don't drain the beans, okay? That's gonna go all in there. It's gonna keep on cooking nice and low and slow for another 30 minutes. Oh, and don't forget your Scotch bonnet in there for extra kick. Also, kids love the danger aspect of chili peppers. Next up, I've got my chili ready to go. Here's another swap. And then here comes the fun part for kids, which is serving and garnishing. Okay? So I'm gonna do a couple of nice big scoops of chili. It's thick. Chili is one of those things, you serve it in the summer, you serve it in the winter. It's kind of an all year round kind of thing, and these vegetables are always available all year round. So we're gonna garnish this up, and I've got some favorites. I've got sour cream there. I've got grated cheddar cheese, that's white cheddar cheese. And there's those green onions that we chopped up to leave on top as a garnish. Next up, I'm gonna do a nice little scoop. And this is great, kids love having the opportunity to customize their final dish. You know, they might not agree with every single thing that went in here, or they might be a little afraid to try certain things. But when you give them a nice array of things that they know, give them the chance to customize their whole thing. Next up, I've got my cheddar cheese, so I'm just gonna do a really big scoop of that. I'm kind of a cheddar cheese fiend, so I'm gonna put a bunch of it on there. That's just the big kid in me, getting to customize and make it exactly what I want it to be. Then I've got green onions, okay? Green onions on top, beautiful. All of a sudden, this is like, ooh, a fancy dinner party. Not just a bowl of chili, but it is just a bowl of chili. The next page has a recipe for the most simple and really delicious cornbread muffins. Okay, so there's the step-by-step. It's a really simple recipe, very battery, very liquidy. They're gonna use a little measuring scoop to put them in. They'll make a mess. Don't worry about that muffin tin. Leave the sloppy bits around the edges. Don't worry, they'll just burn off and that's fine. No big deal. Also, as you can see, as we go along, each of the recipes has warning signs. Things are gonna get hot. Things are gonna be sharp. Things are going to be hot over here as well, so make sure you use an oven mitt when you take those things out of the oven. So that's a really cool warning system throughout the book, and there are 3 things that they're going to be looking for. Kids are going to be looking for sharp, they're going to be looking for heat, and they're going to be looking for germs, which is a big one. You got to make sure that you're washing your hands properly as you go along, not contaminating things with, you know, raw meat and things like that. Now, I've got this beautiful bowl of chili. Take my spoon right out of the sour cream. Pour out one of my cornbread muffins. Tuck. Right in. This has been simmering all day. Cornbread muffin. They get a nice little crispy edge. They're really simple inside. There's not too much complication going on. Kids will love that for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Chili all year round, delicious. Lots of veggies in a really familiar, beautiful format. And then the danger of hot, sharp, and spicy too. Kids will love the spicy. Okay, another recipe coming up soon. So if I'm allowed to pick one recipe from this book that is my absolute favorite, it is breakfast nachos, which sounds weird. Nachos for breakfast, especially when you find out what the toppings are. It's weird, and it's the most delicious thing. I've taught it in kids' classes, I serve it to adults, and everybody loves it, it blows them away. So, it's breakfast nachos. That's gonna get topped with a fruit salsa. It's got a banana guacamole, and it has a dulce fundido, which is a sweet melted, we'll get to that in just a second. I'll explain the details, it's really simple. So here's the recipe, this is what it looks like. As usual, we've got the beautiful photo in the background by Todd Patterson. And then we've got all the step-by-step instructions. So there's the dulce fundido, the banana mole. Page before is how to actually dice an apple, which is a really great trick even for adults to know. And then I've got the fruit salsa, which comes together with strawberries, apples, mint, and lime. I'm gonna put this book aside for a minute. We're gonna start making those things together. So in here I've got 3 mashed bananas. Whoa. I'm gonna tip them out. Just mash them with a fork until they're mushy. And then the other thing about bananas, when they get mushed, they start to oxidize, they turn brown, which freaks people out. Kids, adults, everybody freaks out about oxidizing fruit. It's no big deal. It's a natural occurrence. You can still totally eat the food, but to combat that, we're gonna add a pinch of salt, and we're gonna add brown things to it to make it brown anyway. So cocoa powder. It's easier to convince people to eat brown things when it's chocolate. I've got a little bit of olive oil, some beautiful cinnamon, and some brown sugar, just a little bit more sweetness in there, and then mash that all up. And that's banana mole, which I think is pretty fun. So mush, 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 mush. You can see, you can leave it chunky, no problem. Kind of like a guacamole, you can have it smooth, you can have it chunky, no big deal. And I'll put that over on the side here. And I'm gonna clear this out. Next up, that fruit salsa. So apples, again, no problem to sell kids on apples. There are more than 10,000 different kinds of apples. There's that new one, Cosmic Crisp, which is available at Melissa's Produce, as well as they have a really fun heirloom antique apple bundle that you can get, which is all old apples that have been freshly grown. You know what I'm saying. Now, I'm gonna make a salsa with fruit. I'm gonna use Granny Smith apple because I love the tartness of it. So that's all diced up. And again, I just follow the really simple instructions on how to dice an apple. And the nice thing about this way to dice an apple is no rolling around. Everything stays nice and flat. Next up, I've got strawberries in there. Oh, what a beautiful contrast of colors and textures. So we've got the soft strawberries, the crunchy apples, the green and the red, beautiful color combo. And no kid is gonna say no to a strawberry, that's for sure. Now, lime, zesting. Okay, so we got a little zester here. I'm gonna add the lime, zest, and it talks about how, the pith is bitter. You just wanna have that beautiful, fragrant, zesty, colorful bit, and obviously those little touches of color in there are really fantastic. Okay, get all of that in there, and then I'm gonna slice that in half. Okay, give it a good little squeeze. Lime juice, whoop, that was too much. There we go. And one more, the other half as well. Don't need any sweetness in here. We got other sugar sweet things happening everywhere else. The banana mole is quite sweet. The dolce fondito, what's coming up, that's pretty sweet. And then I've got beautiful, fragrant, delicious mint. And just whole big pieces of mint leaf like that. Just tear them up. Kids love tearing up herbs. It's really easy for them to do. And actually mint smells fantastic. Always, as soon as you touch it, boom. That fragrance is like hitting you, wafting you in the face. And I want to get all of it in there. Okay, so tear it up. And also definitely, like when you're cooking with the kids, make the joke about, oh man, that mint is really terrible. Oh, look how terrible it is. Look how easy it is to tear. That's so terrible. That joke lands really well. That's a keeper for sure. So all the rest of that mint goes in. Give this a little toss with a spoon. Probably is the best way to go. However, spilling some things on the counter, not such a big deal. Easy to clean up. Okay, no big deal. Messes are gonna happen in the kitchen. Don't sweat it, especially when the kids are cooking. Okay, that goes to the side. Now we're gonna circle back to that dolce fondito, which is super fun. So because it's breakfast, I got plain yogurt and I've got dulce de leche, which is beautiful caramel, and that's just mixed together. I just did it ahead of time, super, super simple. Dulce de leche comes in the cans, and that's a beautiful dark caramel color. And then when you add the yogurt, it adds a little bit more creaminess to it. It makes it pourable, right? So you've got that dulce, sweet, fondito, melty. So it's kind of emulating that queso fondito vibe that you usually have on nachos. And then it's nacho time. And I'm actually gonna properly wipe down the counter because I'm trying to be professionals here. There we go. There we go. Yeah, perfect. Got my plate here, and this is fun because kids love plating things. They love going to the plate. And you can arrange your nachos on the plate so everything is one even layer, and you've got nice surface of each of the nachos. Take your time with it. And then you get to be a bit messy with the plating part. Okay, so I'm gonna get some of this gorgeous fruit salsa, right? So it's got the mint leaves in there, strawberries and apples. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. Scatter, scatter, scatter. Nice even distribution. You know, make sure the kids are getting a little bit of everything on every single bite. And then they can understand how flavors and textures and everything kind of works all together in one bite. You get that banana guacamole. And then I like to just take like a tiny little scoop, like really be precious with it. It also makes it more special, right? So this is gonna look pretty messy by the end of it, but if you're being careful and precise, it gives an importance to it, right? So it's a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more thought has gone into it. And then the fun bit is the drizzle. So we got that dulce fundido, okay? Now, if you want to use plain thick yogurt, it gets pretty thick like that. So you just kind of drizzle it on like that. Oh, mint, big smell coming through right now. I got the cinnamon from the banana smell coming through as well. I know that chocolate flavor will come through once you start eating it. And it's okay to be a little bit messy and sloppy around the edges. It's kind of what our photos are all about in the book too. There's lots of sloppy, slippy bits that get onto the side of the plate, etc. And that's just how kids are gonna cook, and that's okay. I'm gonna eat it because it's, again, my absolute favorite recipe in the whole entire book. It's a great way to eat fruit. You can definitely have this for breakfast, which it is, this breakfast nachos, but this is a fantastic snack. It's a really, really great dessert. So a group of people, it's nice to do individual plates as well. And then everybody gets to drizzle and put on exactly what they want. They don't have to have everything necessarily. But it is really fantastic when you get a bite with a little bit of everything in it. Mmm. Mmm. It's so good. The saltiness of the chips, you know, salty and caramel, obviously fantastic. We got the cinnamon, banana, mint, crunchy apple, juicy strawberries. This recipe is so good. If I hadn't done a kids cookbook, I would have put this in a grown-up cookbook any day. This blows people's minds away. And I think you should definitely make this one. If you're gonna make anything, make this one right here. It's delicious. I already know you're gonna make it because banana guacamole, right? All right, thanks guys, and thank you to Melissa's Produce for providing all the fantastic ingredients, bringing everybody together so we could share a plate of nachos, virtually speaking. And it's been really fun. I hope to get to come and hang out with Melissa's in real life. Come and actually check out the shop. And thank you guys very much. Check out the Munchy Munchy Cookbook for kids. Get those kids cooking. Yeah, teach them the basics, the groundwork, make cooking fun, but also give them the right tools to do the job. So thank you guys very much, and have a really awesome day. Bye. What's this?